Today's video is going to discuss Chapter 2.5, Solving Equations Involving Absolute Value. So I want you to keep in mind what absolute value is, and hopefully you remember absolute value is the distance a number is from zero, which is why the absolute value of a number must always be positive. So remember that, for example, a number like 3 is 3 away from 0, but a number like -3 is also 3 away from 0. One is just 3 places to the right on the number line, and the other is just 3 places to the left. So as we solve this problem, remember that these lines represent absolute value, and they kind of work in terms of order of operation. They kind of work as parentheses, so they would be the first thing that you do. So if you think of PEMDAS, they kind of are in that category with the P. So I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to put it up here for M, and I'm going to have the absolute value of 4 plus 6 minus 14. Now keep in mind I need to solve this part first. So I have the absolute value of 10 minus 14. Now the absolute value of 10 is basically asking me how far away from 0 is the number 10. And the number 10 is 10 away from 0. So I've got 10 minus 14. Now I want you to notice that means now that the absolute value brackets are gone. And I now just have a basic subtraction problem, which is 10 minus 14. And so my answer is -4. Now, a lot of times people panic because they don't believe that an absolute value problem can have a negative answer. But the absolute value part of the problem did not have a negative answer. Okay, so you're allowed to do operations after you do absolute value. It's just this number, this 10, would have to be positive because it is representing how far away from 0 this quantity is. All right, now I'm going to have you practice one. 23 minus the absolute value of 3 minus 4x. Please pause the video at this time to practice this problem. So this is going to be 23 minus the absolute value of 3 minus, and this will be 4 times 2. I'm going to do a couple of steps together. This is going to be 8, and then 3 minus 8 is going to be -5. So I'm going to have 23 minus the absolute value of -5. All right, so I got the -5 by putting that together. Now this is asking me how far away from 0 is -5, and -5 is 5 away from 0. So this becomes 23 minus 5. Now I go 23 minus 5, and I should get a final answer of 18. All right, so now let's talk about how this works when we put a variable inside, but we don't necessarily know. So what we're looking for are what value or values, in this problem it's going to be plural, what values of f will make this statement true. And so this is saying that this, f plus 5, or everything that's inside of these brackets, is 17 away from 0. Right? And there are actually two numbers that will have an absolute value of 17. The absolute value of 17 is 17, but also the absolute value of -17 is 17. So in other words, what's inside, f plus 5, could be one of two things. It could either be 17 or it could be -17. So when I do this, I'm actually going to end up solving two problems. I'm going to write them over here. I'm going to have either f plus 5 equals 17 or f plus 5 equals -17. Sorry, I should have had that slide prepared for you. So in other words, I'm saying that f plus 5 could be 17, and the absolute value of 17 would be 17, or f plus 5 could be -17, and then the absolute value of -17 would also be 17. I'm going to come back to this one in just a sec. Right? So I'm saying f plus 5, that this could be one of two things, either 17 or -17. So what I need to do is find out what value of f will make this 17, and what value for f will make this negative 17, which is why I'm going to end up solving this in two problems. Now I'm going to end up doing the same thing to solve both problems. I'm just going to end up get different answers. Over here I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and that would cancel this out, and I'm left with f equals 12. And then I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides over here. This will cancel out. And f will equal, keep in mind that's not negative 12. Negative 17 minus 5 is negative 22. So my final answer, and this should be written in those fancy parentheses because it is a set, is negative 22, comma, 12. Now that means that f can be either one of these two numbers. Please keep in mind they have to be inside fancy parentheses. If they are inside regular parentheses, you might think that they're a point on a graph with an x value and a y value, but that's not what this is. These are both values for f. All right, I'm going to have you practice one. Oh, not so graceful on that. The absolute value of y plus 2 equals 4. Find the values for y that will make this statement true. Please pause the video at this time to practice this problem. So remember that this that's inside can either be 4, because the absolute value of 4 would be 4, or it could be negative 4, because the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So this is going to be y plus 2 equals 4, would be one problem, and y plus 2 equals negative 4 would be my other problem. So what I'm going to end up doing, subtracting 2, and hopefully you did this. Subtract 2 from both sides, that goes away, and I got y equals 2. Over here I'm going to do the same thing, subtract 2 from both sides, cancels that out, and I've got y equals negative 6. So using the fancy parentheses, negative 6, comma, 2. Now, as you start to prepare for high school, keep in mind that typically orders in a set are written from least to greatest, which is why I'll come back to the last problem we did. We put the negative 22, which is less than 12, and why on this particular problem we're going to put negative 6 first and 2 second. You won't necessarily be marked wrong if you were to reverse these order, but you should start trying to get in the habit of writing the orders in sets from least to greatest. All right, then I want to show you one trick problem, and that's this. And so this one's saying the absolute value of b minus 1 equals negative 3. So the trick that people do is they do something like b minus 1 equals negative 3, and b minus 1 equals 3. And then they end up solving this, and down here they'll probably get negative 2 because they'll add 1 to both sides, and over here they'll probably end up getting 4. But the problem is that either of these numbers, negative 2 or 4, when put in here, actually don't make this statement true. So for example, let's take the 4 because I think it's easier to see. 4 minus 1 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3, not negative 3. Over here, if you were to put the negative 2 in, negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Sorry, I'm writing kind of small. So these will both give me 3. They want the answer to be negative 3. So this is actually a trick question. So I'm going to erase this because all of this is wrong. And so the correct answer is that this is impossible. This is the empty set. Okay, there are no numbers that I can substitute in for b that can get me negative 3 because the absolute value of something can never be negative. No number could possibly be negative 3 away from 0. Right? The number negative 3 is 3 away from 0. So remember, there is no such thing as negative distance on a number line. All right, that's all I got for you. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you in class.